Hello, I am Lina, Network Solution Engineer. In today's threat landscape, investigating cybersecurity breaches and performing forensic analysis are critical to safeguarding enterprise assets, maintaining trust, and meeting regulatory obligations. When a security incident occurs, rapid and thorough investigation is essential to understand the scope of an attack, contain potential damage, and prevent future incidents.
This type of investigation is crucial to uncover the attack path, enable effective response, support compliance, and remediate any identified security weaknesses. For example, investigation scenario may include tracing lateral movement, identify suspicious behavior, responding to external notification, and visualizing incident timeline.
These and other investigations requires collecting data from multiple sources and correlating those pieces of information until the answer is found. Enterprises can get more value from telemetry by combining data from different sources. In this demo, we'll show how data from an OmniSwitch analyzed with the ELK Stack, Logstash, and Kibana Stack, known as ELK, can support security investigations.
Now, before analyzing users' traffic, it's important to make sure that it is legal for you to do so. Laws differ depending on the jurisdiction and specify under which condition monitoring can take place. What we are showing here is a demo in a lab. Please do your research before you try this at your organization.
We will start with a few examples of data and telemetry that can be extracted from an OmniSwitch or other network and cybersecurity element. We will continue with an overview of the ELK stack. Finally, we will demonstrate practical investigation scenarios that show how telemetry can be combined to produce actionable insights. Let's begin. Investigating these scenarios requires collecting data from multiple sources and correlating information until the sequence of events is fully clarified. This brings us to the type of data we can extract from network and cybersecurity infrastructures. Devices such as the switches, servers, and security tools generate a wealth of telemetry that, when combined, provides a comprehensive view of network activity. Some of the key types of data include radius accounting, logs who connected when and how, deep packet inception, or DPI, analyzes traffic content to spot suspicious activity, syslog, record events, change, and error, SNMP, to track device health and unusual behavior, sflow and IPFix, show who is communicating with whom and how much data is exchanged, and API logs capture automated interactions between applications. Once collected, this data can be aggregated, correlated, and analyzed using platforms such as ELK, Splunk, Logarithm, Microsoft Sentinel, Palo Alto, and Cortex. These tools help centralize logs from multiple sources, visualize trends and anomalies, and provide useful information for investigations. And now, I will hand it over to Celia, who will introduce the ELK stack we used in this demo.
Now that we've seen with Lina the types of data and telemetry that can be extracted from network and security systems, let's look at how we can process, store, and visualize this information using the ELK stack. The ELK stack, which stands for Elasticsearch, Logstash, and Kibana, works with 4 key components. The first component is bits. It collects data using lightweight agents on devices or servers. These agents gather logs and metrics from network equipment, application, and endpoints. It captures system events, network traffic summaries, authentication logs, and more. Then, bits send the data to the next stage for processing. So once the data is collected, it goes to Logstash, which acts as a data processor. Logstash receives information from bits and other sources. It then filters, parses, and enriches the data. For example, it can turn raw logs entries into structured information, extract important fields, and add context to events to make them easier to understand and search. After processing, the data is stored and indexed in Elasticsearch. Elasticsearch is a powerful search engine. It allows analysts to quickly query millions of records. They can correlate events from different sources and identify patterns that may indicate suspicious activity or security incidents. Finally, Kibana provides the visualization and analysis layer. It takes the indexed data from Elasticsearch and displays it in dashboards, charts, and graphs. Kibana can be used to monitor network activity, spot anomalies, track incidents over time, and create custom visualization for specific investigation needs. By combining these four components, the ELK Stack lets organizations collect large amounts of telemetry from switches, servers, firewall, and other systems. This allows teams to monitor systems effectively and make quick data-driven decisions.
Now we have seen the type of data we can collect and how the ELK stack processes and visualizes it. Let's move on to some practical examples. In this demonstration, we will walk through two different investigation scenarios that highlight how telemetry from OmniSwitch, OmniAccessStealer, OmniVista, and other security tools can be combined to provide actionable insights. The first scenario focuses on a situation where an intrusion detection system, IDS, reports malware on a device inside the network. We will see that after this event triggers, an automatic quarantine additional data sources can help us to identify the user and assess potential data exposure.
The second scenario is a bit more complex. It begins with receiving a DMCA takedown notice. A DMCA takedown notice is a formal request under the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. It asks an online service provider to remove or block access to copyrighted material used without permissions. This process helps copyright holders address online infringement of their works. From there, we show how firewall traffic logs and other data can be used to trace the responsible internal device and user. These two cases together show how combining different data sources allows us to reconstruct the full traffic history. They provide all the information needed to understand what happened and respond effectively.
Let's dive into the first scenario. In this first scenario, a user connects to the enterprise network, whether through a wired connection, Wi-Fi, or even via cloud services, and access the internet through a firewall. At this point, an IDS detects suspicious activity and raises an alert that malware is running on the user's device. The IDS immediately sends a syslog alert to OmniVista Quarantine Manager. Based on predefined security policies, the Quarantine Manager automatically moves the compromised device into a restricted VLAN or segment. This isolation prevents the device from communicating with the rest of the network, while still allowing limited access for remediation. This type of automatic containment greatly reduces the attack surface and stops lateral movement inside the network. Now, for the demo, we won't repeat the full quarantine workflow itself. That's already been covered in previous tutorial. You can check the video guide on spacewalkers.com. Instead, let's take a closer look at how we can enrich the investigation with additional data sources in order to identify the affected user and measure the real impact. Radius accounting logs link the quarantine IP or MAC address to a specific user identity, especially username. DPI logs reveal which applications and services the compromised device was using before it was quarantined. ELK dashboard correlates all this information, giving SOC teams a single centralized view of user identity, device activity, and network behavior. With this combined perspective, we don't just know that a device was infected, we can confirm exactly which user was impacted, what kind of data might have been exposed, and even generate compliance-ready report. To make this work seamlessly, we integrated DPI data directly into ELK. Here's how it functions in practice. The network devices automatically export the key files every 10 minutes. This is done using a script which authenticates to the switch, retrieve the files, and send them to the ELK server. This setup makes the process fully automated, reliable, and traceable, eliminating the need for any manual intervention. We also connected the radius accounting data into ELK. In this case, the network devices send an accounting record directly to the ELK server through a AAA server profile and configuration policies, ensures that the correct accounting data is forwarded to the right place. We won't go into all the detailed configuration here, those are covered in other demo on Spacewalkers, but the key point is that user identity information is directly tied into the investigation workflow. Let's assume the IDS report the affected device with this IP address. Our first step is to find out who is actually behind this IP address. Once we have identified the user, our next step is to analyze the device activity to estimate what data might have been exposed. All these investigations give SOC teams a unified data-rich view that connects the dots between users, devices, and traffic flows, which is exactly what you need to quickly contain incidents and understand their impact. Let's move to the demo. Let's start in Kibana Discover tab. Here we can browse through the raw logs index by index. For example, in SW Radius index, we can see the session for the IP address we are investigating. Looking closer, we confirm that the quarantined IP belongs to the user Joe, who is connected on the VLAN 125 on a port 112 on our switch OS6860. Now, radius logs are great for identifying the user, but to understand what the device was actually doing, we need to correlate with DPI data. So let's switch to our dashboard. Once we opened our dashboard, the first table we see is the one we pulled from the radius accounting. Of course, here we can directly see Joe in this demo because we only have 2 cases, but in the real network environment, we are dealing with 1,000 of logs, so identifying the user without filtering isn't realistic. That's why, when we're receiving an alert, the first step is to take the IP address from it and search right here in the top bar. In this case, we can identify the user Joe, and we can also see more details, such as a MAC address, role profile, and VLAN number, and of course the connection time, where in other cases could be useful. Once we identify the user, we can switch on to the table just below, DPI table. We can see all the traffic exchanged, the address where the traffic comes from and where it goes, the applications, protocols, time in, time out, and the number of bytes exchanged. Here, I filtered on Joe's address, it being either the origin or the destination. and focusing on the time window around the alert. And we can check our time alert to be sure. Here, as we can confirm, our alert was in 4 September at 3 p.m. And here, I will just put 1 day before to right now. This gives us the full picture of the traffic around the incident time. Here, for example, we can see the applications that Joe communicated with. In this case, we have examples like YouTube or Windows Update, Firefox Update, etc. And for each connection, we can also see the number of bytes exchanged and the time in and time out. And in this chart, we clearly see which applications Joe's communicated with and the total volume of data exchanged. So, in just a few steps, we correlated the IDS alert with the radius logs to identify the user, and with DPI flows to see what data was exchanged. Investigating around the alert time allows us to uncover all related activity and understand the full scope of the incident, not just what initially triggered the alert. And now, I will let Celia to start with the second scenario.
Thank you, Lina, for this demo. We've seen how we can get a complete picture of the incident in this simple scenario. Now, let's make things a little more complex. In this second scenario, a user connects to our network whether through wired, wireless, or cloud access. The traffic goes through our firewall. In this case, the user attempts to access a copyright infringement. To analyze what happened, we configured our firewall to automatically send its real-time log in syslog format to our ELK server on port 514. These firewall logs are crucial because they allow us to link the external IP address to the internal IP address. As in the previous scenario, we will also collect DPI and radius logs to get a complete view of the user's activity. Continuing with our scenario, after the user accessed copyright-protected content, we received a DMCA takedown notice. Because the user connected through a network address translation, NAT, the notice only provides the external IP address. We do not have direct information about the actual user. In reality, a takedown notice doesn't provide the application name, it only gives a URL or address pointing to the content. For this demo, we obviously won't use an illegal URL, so as a neutral example, we'll use Netflix for this demo. The goal of this investigation is to identify which user was behind that IP and understand exactly what activity took place with ELK Stack. Let's now take a look at the dashboard in Kibana. Since Lena already showed the radius and DPI tables earlier, I won't repeat that part. In this case, we start by looking for the firewall logs table. This table lists fields contained in each firewall log message: external IP address, application used, internal IP address, also known as source IP, and destination IP address. To move forward with the investigation, the first step is to set a time window. In our scenario, the suspicious activity took place on the 10th of September. We'll select 1 day before the event until today, so we don't miss any related activity. Then, we need to apply two filters here. The external IP address provided in the data notice is this one. We can enter this data in the filter bar. Trans IP is the variable for the external IP. For the second filter, let's look at the takedown notice. We suppose here that the content is the application Netflix. So we filter the data to include only entries containing the Netflix application. By doing this, we can narrow down the logs and directly link that external IP to the internal IP. We can clearly see activities on Netflix on the 10th of September, and here we see that the internal IP linked to the external one is this address. The next step is to find out which user is behind this IP. Now that we have the internal IP address, we can filter logs by entering it as the source IP address. Here, we can see that it was Anna who accessed Netflix. The logs also show the MAC address, the world profile, and VLAN. Now that we know that the user was Anna, we want to see all the traffic activity. And for that, we'll need DPI logs. In DPI logs, the user's address can appear either in the source field or the destination field, which is why we apply this filter in both directions. We can see detailed traffic information, such as the number of bytes or protocol. That way we can detect if there were other illegal activities that were not noticed or communication with other infected devices. By using the external IP address from the takedown notice, we were able to trace the activity back to a specific user and analyze their traffic in detail.
Today, we have seen how collecting information from different sources helps understand what happens during a security incident. By combining and analyzing this data in a central dashboard, it's become much easier to identify user, track activity, and detect anything unusual. Using these insights, investigations are faster, clearer, and more effective, helping protect sensitive information and maintain trust.
So, to wrap things up, what we've seen today is how powerful it can be to bring different sources of data together. On their own, things like Radius Log, IGS Alert, or Firewall Record only give you part of the story. But once you combine them in a central platform like ELK Stack, you suddenly get the full picture. You can quickly see who was the user, what the device was doing, and whether any sensitive data might have been at risk. That's what really turns raw telemetry into something actionable.
And beyond the technical side, this really shows why fast and accurate investigations matter. The quicker you can trace back an incident, the faster you can contain it and reduce the impact. At the same time, you are also learning from it, identifying weak spots, and strengthening your security for the future. In the end, it's not just about solving one case, it's about building resilience, keeping your organization compliant, and maintaining trust. That's the real value of collecting, correlating, and visualizing all this data. Thank you for your attention. We hope you found this session useful. You can find all the code example used in this tutorial at spacewalkers.com Developer Center. Take care and see you next time.